Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Kelli, back. Thank you so much for joining me again and doing this series with us. So we are here today for part 3 of the Do You Want to Talk About It? I was going to say Friday Fertility, but really today's Monday. But that's as do I in my tab mug. So thank you, Kelli, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, we had to do a little pivot, life. So life be life, but here we are. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty darn well, in fact.
Yeah.
I'm smiling. I'm having a good day. So to let y'all know, I had text Kelli earlier because it was so all this has been so helpful for me too, by the way. And one of the things I texted her was like just the idea that she had reminded me of that nothing is linear, and for me the expectation that it would be linear was false. And to finally get to a place where to understand on any category, of course we talk about fertility and all these things, but to expect that something is going to have the same trajectory or be the same as it always is just silly, just so silly. So as I'm maturing in my emotions and maturing in my understanding of things, just understand that it's gonna come for you sometimes. But the more I'm dealing with these things and being able to address them and name them and acknowledge them, it doesn't mean things aren't bad or they don't hurt or you don't go through things, but maybe just I recover quickly, or just in the moment my brain can process things better. I can't really define what is changing. Something's changing, but I can't really define it.
I always, that's something that I kind of keen into when people will say like, it's so silly, or this is going to sound stupid, or, any other like language of judgment. It's not silly because I think we're raised in a space where we're just taught that 1 + 1 always equals 2. And that's not always the case, for a plethora of reasons. So it's not silly to think that things are going to be linear, because that's kind of how we're taught to be regimented, to be routine. You do this so that you can get this outcome. And what we know in fertility, young and old, is that it doesn't always work that way. It just does not always work that way. But if you're never informed, if you never get to be in spaces where you have a range of conversation to normalize, the fluctuations in experiences, you're only coming from one point of reference. So I just even am grateful in my big old age to have friends, who are vocal about their personal experiences and who don't keep it hush hush and taboo, so that we can, girl, you too, and you too, and I didn't know, like it adds more context to these everyday experiences and challenges that a lot of us have been facing in silence.
So by the way, in case I didn't say, which I don't think I said, today we were talking about feelings of failure and all the ways that can manifest itself. One of the points that I thought about was feelings of failure as a wife, not being able to, the role, the duty that we have sometimes, not being able to, give your husband children, or give your partner, spouse children. And then the failure as a woman. I am a woman, my body is meant to do this, why can't it do it? And then feelings of failure when you begin to hate and distrust your own body, that your body is failing you. And then feelings of failure, whether that is not being able to get pregnant or not being able to stay pregnant, again, the whole failing your body, or your body failing you in whichever way that can manifest itself. So maybe we can start kind of at the top. I don't know which one is more pertinent, and I guess if anyone still is on IG, let me know, or if you're comfortable sharing, let us know which of those maybe are some things you've dealt with, if you're comfortable sharing. But maybe I started the first one. So I think we were talking about, I forget which week now because they're kind of blending into each other, but we certainly had talked about the way that we have expectations and norms that we, because I wasn't this person, but I know some of us do it, you know, right? Make a list, maybe when you're a teenager in your 20s, by this age this, by this age that, by this age
What's
that.
the game? Mash, mansion, apartment, shack, house,
Oh,
four
and the
different
little
cars. Yeah, how many kids you gonna have? Right. So you even see from that young tender age how it's normalized in the way that we kind of socialize, that we set these fairy tale expectations of what our lives are gonna be, and really like believe in it hard, you know. Um, or even just start to do things that will potentially get us to that outcome, to that dream, to that desire. And so it's no fault of our own, you know. It's no fault of our own the way that we have been taught to think about what we should be able to do as, you know, as women, what we should be able to do as the individual who's carrying the child, what that experience should look like. It doesn't leave any room for life to life, you know, at the end of the day. So I think part of that is one, being able to identify how you feel, kind of how we were talking about last week on that feelings, the feelings chart, the feelings wheel. I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm potentially experiencing for me to label it as failure. You know, maybe I'm hurt really at the core of it. Maybe I'm disappointed. Maybe I'm confused, you know, but it's all being kind of wrapped up in this bow as though I've done something wrong or my body, you know, has done something wrong. And so just being able to give ourselves permission to feel what you feel, to be upset, to be angry, to be hurt, to be disappointed. um, until we kind of do that, we don't get through those stuck points to potentially get to that place where we can work towards reframing or work towards, you know, seeking different meaning and understanding in the context of what we're going through.
Mm. And so specifically in the space of, you know, with between a woman and her partner, another thing that we brought up in a previous week was, so say I'm having feelings of failure as a wife, as you know, me and my husband married, and he would be such a great father, and I would just love to give him children, whatever those kind of thoughts that I might be having. And then on a previous week, you mentioned how we are denying that other person, and you phrase it much better than I'm about to, but you're denying that other person, you know, a right to their own feelings almost, because you are choosing, or I'm gonna let you talk because you know where I'm going. So talk about that
No,
part.
I know. You just finish your thought.
But just how we are kind of like choosing their feelings for them, or, you know, assuming how they feel, or, you know, just thinking that they're thinking a certain way, and maybe they've reassured you that they aren't or whatever, but you may still even be feeling those things because, again, we are socialized to think this, and, you know, even have his babies, like we even talk like that sometimes, like the way that the direction is kind of put on us having the babies for the man and all that, which I guess we are the one having the babies, but yeah, just how even in that conversation, you are almost denying your partner, this person you've chosen to do this with, and they wouldn't trade you a million times if you picked a good one. He ain't gonna leave you because y'all can, you know, can't have kids, but sometimes maybe we're thinking that that he's stuck with me and he should just go and find somebody else, or I don't know.
Yeah. And all of that could be true, you know. To be honest, to keep it a book, you may have a partner that feels that way. even Even in, you know, coming into this shared experience with both of us having this expectation that it's going to be easy or that it's just going to happen, that does not deny him of potentially being let down, being angry, being confused at the way his perceived experiences or his, you know, subjective reality of how it was going to happen isn't happening. Um, so I think the more that we get to the reality that that can be his reality or that can be our reality, and now what? And now what? Do we have conversation about alternatives? Do we just have conversation about what's needed from each other or what's inaccessible from each other as we're going through this very real traumatic experience for both parties. You
Mm.
know, do we talk about um, those heavy feelings of, you know, what are you conflicted with now that we're in this space where our plan is not turning out how we planned? Are you open to other things? And so, yeah, to that point, we have to allow them to acknowledge how they feel, even if it hurts in the reality of it.
Mm.
Even if my partner is disappointed, and recognizing that it's not no fault of your own, you know, it's not our fault that our bodies in some spaces protect us, you know,
Mm.
in some spaces are just not ready to carry forth. It's not our fault.
Mm.
And so working to kind of share that traumatic experience and not just harbor that all for yourself is important.
Yeah, sharing it, I think, is really important because it's hard because I think, again, I keep saying this, we've probably talked about this already, but because we experience it differently. To be the one carrying
Mm-hmm.
the birth, we're both pregnant. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would use that language, but it ain't the same. You don't experience it the same way. You don't go through the same way. You don't deal with it the same
Mm-hmm.
way. You because it's almost, you know, they can pick up and leave and go because they're not clearly not carrying it with them all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then certainly in the instance of, you know, a miscarriage or, yeah, there's a loss that's equally shared, but the physical part of it just takes it to the next level. And that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I think the most, you know, emotionally mature man would never really ever fully understand what, you know, their partner may be going through in this time. So I think it's kind of, like you're saying, very important to continue the open dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's so hard to talk about a lot of the times. But I think
Yeah.
for me, he's the best person to talk about it with. Um, Sometimes.
So I challenge that in the space of if we're both in a space where we're flooded with emotion, because maybe we both are having our own experiences to this loss, as you said, right?
Mm.
For the carrier, you know, my body isn't doing what I'm thinking it's supposed to do, what I've told myself that it's supposed to do, what other people are telling me it's supposed to do, or what I need to move forward. Just as much that other partner may be in a space of feeling as though they failed because they couldn't stop you from having that experience, or
Mm.
they can't fix, you know, that
Mm.
experience for you. So um sometimes it's not about understanding to 100%. Sometimes it's not always putting the responsibility of your partner to be 100% that person that you go through that with. If we both are having very difficult times navigating this, I may have to step outside,
Mm.
you know, to my trusted counsel, my village or whatever, to get me to a place where I can be receptive and or open, um, to take in what my partner is trying to express with me, what we're both trying to grow through. Um, and being flexible in that there is power in having range in your village so that you and your partner don't break under the pressures that you both are kind of experiencing at the same time.
Mm.
Um, so when I'm calm, when I'm regulated, when I've kind of shooken some of the edge off, maybe that allows me to come back in a little bit more gentle, a little bit more patient, a little bit more understanding to the experience that my partner is having, and to be vulnerable enough to talk about the experience that I'm having.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. What you're saying about in the moment, like both, we both can't be on 10. Okay. I need one of us to be calm. Okay. So that's a good point. And then two, the emotional exhaustion, because I definitely remember trying to turn my hurt and pain and all that down to make
Mm-hmm.
space for his, not that he asked, not that, you know, not in a negative way, but just like, oh, let me, what I'm trying to say, I can't be just dogged out, just grief
Mm-hmm.
stricken, because I can't
Mm-hmm.
support him and he's hurting. And instinct, again, I'm sure mutually him to me and me to him, instinct is to protect that person, do all you can when you see that person is hurting, oh my goodness, you would do anything. So I know instances where tears dried up with quickness, because I'm like, okay, now is not the time for me. Let me focus on him. So that's a good reminder, like you're saying, like sometimes you need a little external support.
Yeah.
The moment. I just wanted to read real quick on here. Mickey was saying that, and thank you for sharing, Mickey. I've dealt with feelings that I was less than a woman when I wasn't conceiving as quickly as expected. Well-meaning church advisors, maybe church people, told me I was a problem, and I internalized in so many others. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because
that's why I say wise counsel, right? Everything that glitter ain't gold. And that is why when we were kind of talking about earlier, when you have friends, when you have, close aunts or other people that you can go to that kind of normalize that experience or kind of give you options for a different experience, that you work towards giving yourself permission to engage in that, because it really could be a matter of just that. I'm believing that my body is doing wrong because of, look at the source of where it's coming from, versus another source that may talk about, the challenges, the biology of it, all of these other factors that can contribute to why this thing may have happened, while also amplifying that this is a very hard thing that I'm going through. So a little bit of compassion and empathy, while also maybe providing a little bit of psychoeducation when we're ready as to, and what do you want to do moving forward? How do we want to grow forward from this? Not condemning you for not again succeeding in the ways that, right, succeeding in the ways that are just unrealistic.
Is that a thing? Like, I'm asking Jane a question. Like, is this like a biblical thing? Like, the wife is supposed to bear? Is that like a thing?
You know what? So far left field, but not really. I started watching The Handmaid's Tale. Have you ever seen that show?
No, I'm familiar with this, but no, I didn't watch it.
So, I think that is loosely based on some biblical principles, but let's just say for this particular society, scarlet women, right, like the Scarlet Letter, women who have committed some type of crime, in order to be redeemed in the eyes of the Lord, they are placed with these higher up families whose wives have difficulties conceiving. And so your redemption is being able to bear fruit for this family, right? And so they're beaten, they are talked down upon, they are, told that they are not being good women of Christ or whatever, when their cycles come, when it's been prolonged in their efforts to get pregnant, when I just don't want to have any more children, right? May the Lord, what does it say? May the Lord, anyway, yes. So there's these like foundational core beliefs that this is what, as a woman, God has created you to be able to do. And so it is a blessing to be able to provide that. And if that's anybody's belief, cool, right? It is a blessing and a miracle to be able to create life within yourself. But I should not feel as though I'm a failure if I have difficulty getting to that point, or even if I choose that I don't want that for myself,
And there's enough to deal with. Like, that's insane to intentionally pile on. And you and I were talking very briefly before about, even in some cultures, that this is the belief that, first of all, that is the woman, because ain't no way the man is, they're virile, they're, everything's tip top. So if it's not working, it has to be the woman, because she's the weaker being, weaker vessel, whatever these people. So like you're saying, to be able to get out of that box sometimes and seek other, what do you say, wise counsel, seek someone else, a second opinion, hello, to be able to have your tribe. And even too, back to what you're saying about, I can only speak for myself. I do my best to normalize this, and the culture, let's say on social media, on Instagram, is creeping towards that. If you want to find a community, you can. So just being able to normalize. So if you are feeling those outside pressures of, no, boo, it's you, to understand that there's places to seek support and solace, and to know that it's not you, you're not broken. This is just something that is happening, but it doesn't mean anything about you or who you are as a person or woman. So I do agree with that. Like, the more this is talked about, because I've definitely recently found out, aunts and grandmas, and it was like, I mean, I guess I was younger, and obviously no one was telling me when I was 16, so maybe that has a little bit to do with it. But
yeah.
ain't nobody telling me these stories, just to even make
Well,
me
that's
feel
often how it tends to happen. It's not until maybe you have your first baby, and maybe there's, criticism and judgment of what you're about to experience and what you shouldn't be experiencing quite yet. And or it is kind of gentle and compassionate when maybe a person is getting married and doing things, in order. And so we privy them to things that you may, now you're gonna have to, have sex with your husband, or here's what you should expect with these kids. And like, the gatekeepers to these experiences until you get into that experience, opposed to, maybe thinking about, and I think we have to understand what that's rooted in. Why have we historically kept certain conversations away from, children or young people? To protect them, to not expose them to things potentially too soon before cognitively they're ready, even if their bodies are kind of ready. So understanding that, culturally, religiously, we do things for specific reasons. Understanding, can I be culturally competent to understand why that's happening? And potentially in that, working to shift it, age appropriate education. We teach kids, how we were saying before, from early on, mommy's baby, daddy maybe, right? Or this is how you take care of a baby. And we kind of groom our young people into these roles. We can age appropriately talk about some of the things that don't always go, according to plan, so that as we are coming upon these experiences, we've been given the tools to kind of navigate that. And I think that there's kind of this expectation that when you reach a certain point, you should just know why. Why? Why? We have to create space to ask why, for understanding. Why should I know this? And when I then choose to educate myself, I have to stand in that. When I find value in something, when I've been exposed, when my eyes have been open, when I align with something that works, so that I can kind of discard what doesn't work for me.
Let me get my notes back open. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, Mickey was saying, yes, be fruitful and multiply. When you're not doing that, then you must be doing something wrong. And not in good standing with God. Wow.
That show is crazy. It's real strong. It's real strong.
But it's based in reality. I mean, this is what. And Mickey, can I ask what religion this is? I don't know if that's too personal. I don't know if it's a standard Christian, good old classic.
I feel like I have heard that line in the Bible. Don't quote me. I'm pretty sure that it is there, but
oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that really hurts my feelings. That is insane.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to put her on the spot. Okay, so one of the other points
she said Christian Pentecostal.
Oh, okay.
I was raised Baptist, so I'm pretty sure that's where I got that from.
So it's similar.
And again, it's all under the context of marriage, right? Don't just be fruitful and out here multiplying, because then, you're fast and you're hot out here in these streets. The marital bed is made for sex. sex is, you know, when you really dig back into it, sex is for conception, it's for conceiving. It's not supposed to be just for fun and pleasure. It was kind of said that it was made pleasurable so that people would do the act, right?
All this in the Bible? Girl, I need to go to church.
Don't pin me on that one. Don't pin me on that one. But, I'm sure that those type of ideals are, you know, in every culture and every, you know, community in its own kind of way. So even to the point, girl, you're not gonna give that man no babies. What's to the belief of that? That if I don't want to give that man some babies, or if I can't give that man some babies, what does that then say about me?
So back to the whole, you know, how we are socialized. Very few of these, I shouldn't speak so absolute, but I'm pretty sure very few of these conversations are had the reverse way. You know, when you go put a baby in her, maybe I guess I have heard that phrase, but again, we know that that's not the crux isn't put on the husband, on the man. Like, it's put more on the woman, that, you know, maybe we're just having these conversations more. Maybe somebody's uncle, you know, my husband's uncle isn't pulling him to the side. But my auntie, she sure will put me to the side and try to talk to me about this.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's kind of setting the tone to normalize those experiences on both sides, and not as a man being potentially fearful to talk about, you know, the fact that maybe I'm struggling to get erect, or I am shooting blanks and things of that nature, because now what does that say about me as a man? So I do think that similar experiences happen on both sides. We've just kind of been conditioned to make it the woman's fault, to make it the woman's burden,
and duty and all of that. Nikki was saying that that's how she grew up, but she's no longer at that church, so that's good. Healthy. So another thing I wanted to talk about was the feeling, and I guess these are kind of overlapping, but, you know, as maybe the time is progressing and it hasn't happened, or, you know, from my personal experience, I've gotten pregnant, but I have had losses. So just starting to, those feelings of failure within your body start to creep in, or failure of even distrust, I would say, in your body, because even the next, so, you know, pregnant and then had a loss and then became pregnant again. And so the distrust in your body, for sure, because I don't trust nothing no more. I don't trust nothing no more. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're thinking about, you know, just to be kind of, so there's an image in my mind of like endlessly falling, like just falling and falling and falling and falling. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing to grasp onto. You don't know if the bottom is in 2 seconds, if it's in 2 hours, you don't know when you're gonna hit. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. Just a free fall. And so, you know, being able to trust your body. And I also started to have to have better self-talk, because I was what'd you say?
No, in my head, that's what I was kind of thinking of too.
Yes, eventually I got there, because I was starting to, you know, like, not like my body, and not even like the way that my body looked, and just, you know, not having very positive self-image. But then at the same time, I'm asking my body to do this thing for me. I'm asking it to excel, to exceed, to be healthy, to do all these things. And I'm over here, you know, pinching this and sucking in there and not wanting to. It's just like, what are we doing here? If you talk me again, self-talk. This is how I talk to myself. You know, if you want this, if you want your body to do something for you, you need to be loving it. You need to be pouring love into yourself. And then traditional Chinese medicine believes that, they call it your child's palace. Like, your womb is where your child will live and grow. And so, you know, if you want to have this, certainly a positive result, positive ending, you need to be pouring it with love. You know, your eggs are there this whole time. We always kind of like start the clock when we get pregnant, but the seed of life is already living within you. So to be able to, I mean, of course, for my perfecting nutrition and lifestyle and all those things, but even, the mind body connection, just your emotions, like you're pouring yourselves with these, flooding yourselves with the hormones of good emotions and the hormones and neurotransmitters of bad emotions equally. So to try to kind of steer things, this is eventually what I started to tell myself, like, girl, get it all the way together.
Yeah. And that takes practice, I think in all of this, it's practice in the pursuit of acceptance, right? Accepting the fact that my plan isn't going how I wanted to, accepting the fact that maybe I have to shift what I thought I was going to have, and that life may look a little bit different. Acceptance in the fact that there are things that I don't like, and that I can still work towards creating a vision that does feel right for me. Um, so it's continuous space of compassion and empathy, so that you can make room to accept, and so that you can make room to grow forward. Where do we go from here? um and so with talking about that, it's not linear. Sometimes that may be a little bit easier than others, when I'm not, in regards to loss, when I'm not surrounded by children, and that's not my focal point, and I have other things that I'm allowing myself to engage in, then that acceptance may look a little bit different. I'm ingesting other things that are helping me to shift my focus and my perspective. But then there may be seasons where everybody popping up pregnant, and all the kids are having birthday parties, and there's these constant external reminders that you have no control over, right? And so in that space, I may have to shift more towards, how can I be gentle with myself? How can I soothe myself? How can I take care of myself in this season, um, while these things are presenting? So it's kind of this continuous ebb and flow of thriving and growing, and kind of like just being still, just being still. And that takes practice.
Yeah, a
It
lot
takes
of
a lot of practice and a lot of support. So I think, it kind of continuously draws back to being patient with ourselves, identifying moments of trust, or things that have created trustworthiness in ourselves, doing that kind of 5 to 1, as we talked about before. Like, I have to challenge myself in these thoughts to see anything positive, because this very negative real thing that I'm experiencing is heavy as hell right now. It's heavy. So accepting the fact that this shit is heavy and it's real, and all of the feelings that I'm feeling, are a part of this process, and accepting that.
So you just said trustworthiness in ourselves, to find ourselves trustworthy. Because I obviously have thought about it in the other, and the flip, the inverse, distrust. But I think I only brought it to the neutral, not feeling distrust, just feeling whatever. But the complete other end of it, trusting, absolute trust. See, I'm about to start crying. Hold on, give me a second. Gotta get the whole situation together. But
okay,
it's very difficult, when you are thrown this way, to bring yourself the other way, and to be able to, for example, it took me a long time. I would say in my head, yeah, you sorry, I'm still stuttering. You'll get pregnant. It'll happen. I could say it in my head. One day I tried to say it out loud in the mirror, choking on the words. And so it's interesting you're saying, like, to be able to, let's say again, I use the mirror, to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say out loud, I trust myself, I trust my body, I trust this process. Like, that would be so, I'll have to, practice that, because it all takes practice. But to, to be able to say those things and believe it, or at least it's not linear. So to have moments of firm and absolute unwavering faith and hope in the midst of it all.
And what I offer to that is that sometimes practice doesn't look like attending to that thing that's hard for you to do right now. Sometimes practice is just already affirming things that you do trust within yourself, because of the reality is this thing is still very tender, and I can't lie to myself. It does me no good to try to positive talk myself into something that I honestly don't believe, that I'm honestly still in the midst of struggle with. So maybe I have to practice this skill with something else to build that strength up within me so that I can implement it once I do feel a little less tender in that space. That's
Yeah.
okay too. That is
Yeah.
right. I'm gonna practice baking some cookies and building my confidence in that before I try to go do this souffle, right? It just
Right.
meet myself where I am, at where I am in the current, with what I have access to within myself, and without, outside of myself, what can I manage and what can I handle? And there's intentionality behind that. I'm intentionally telling myself that one day I will look in the mirror and speak that to me. One day is not today. One day is
Mm.
not today. And that's okay. But in that intentionality, maybe I gradually work towards getting there. So maybe that looks like, I would like to believe one day that I will trust in myself to X, Y, and Z. That's fine. That's intention. That is, I'm thinking forward. One day I will like to. That day is just not today.
Mm. Yeah. It's hard sometimes to not push it because I just want to be, I guess, healed. Maybe that'll be a good word to sum it up. I just want to be healed. I just want to be done. I just want to be over this. I just want to, and then I had to start looking at that like, okay, if this does exist, healing, being done, what would that look like? Would it only be when you've accepted that it's not going to happen? Would it only be if you were to become pregnant again and you have a baby and now all of a sudden the you know the stress is off, or the negative grief is off,
Mm-hmm.
and just trying to figure out what would that look like. And then I eventually realized that I'm pretty sure, remember I was talking about my rock analogy, I'm pretty sure there's no over, there's no done, there's no through with this, there's no, it will change, it'll look different, it'll feel different. It won't feel so sharp. I mean, just like any grief, which is what you said
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning, like this is just the stages of grief. Even
Mm-hmm.
when you lose a loved one, you will
Mm-hmm.
always miss that person. You'll
Mm-hmm.
be able to think about them fondly. You'll be able to smile when you think about them,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually, they're not gonna not be gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's still gonna be the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they were passed and they're dead, that you've lost them will still be real.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I'm still kind of, again, figuring out what does it mean for me? What will it look like for me?
But for the fact that you're in a space where you can ask yourself more of those questions
Mm-hmm.
is growth in itself, is healing in itself, because I've pushed past the stuck point. Before, maybe all I could think about is why me?
Yeah.
Why this? Why me? Why did this not happen? And maybe past that stuck point is, I recognize that this happened. I'm not happy that it happened. I accept that it's happened in reality. And what does this mean moving forward? Now those questions. And you may find that you develop more questions as you experience more, as you are exposed to more, that continue to kind of shape what that means, and what that purpose that you're kind of the purpose that you're putting on something, the purpose that you're putting on that outcome. So I
Yeah.
think I was talking to a friend of mine, and she had a quote: "Is success in the outcome, or is it in the journey? Is healing in the outcome, or is it in the journey?"
Oh, I don't know. That's a good one.
Mm.
Um, yeah, for me, since I'm in the journey, I'm still healing.
Mm.
And I just don't always think that there is an end point.
Mm.
There's no there's no destination per se. Like,
Mhm.
where do you get off this? But like, there's no destination. You're just on this ride. You're just perpetually on this.
Yeah.
And
My response to that question, or what I posed back, was, does the answer become clear as you continue to experience? Because maybe it is the outcome at some points, and maybe at some points it's the journey. Maybe,
mm,
it's a loop, a continuous loop of all of those things.
mm,
The more I understand, the more I seek, the more I know, maybe that shifts some things for me. The more I experience, the more I share, the more I open, maybe that shifts some things for me.
yeah. And sometimes the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. The more you grow, you realize, or you challenge your older beliefs or your older understanding, and kind of have to loop back around sometimes.
Mhm.
Let me see who more else had anything to add. Hey, Danny. Let me see what else we have. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything you want to bring up.
No,
Okay.
I've really enjoyed these, conversations, and at the end of it, and the continuance of it, I just hope that it allows us to probe thought, to challenge our beliefs, and in that challenge, not necessarily that you're looking to change it, but really seeking to kind of understand it a little bit more. How has it shaped who you are, and the way that you perceive experiences should be, and how you want to move forward with that. So just creating conversation. It's so off topic, but not off topic. Um, so two older women in their 60s, I invited them to go get a yoni steam. And I think that they were both like intrigued and shocked that this unwed person, right, is coming to kind of talk about, girl, you go get, what did she say? You want me to get my coochie steamed? Like, it was just like, what? Conversations are so taboo, but and
Mhm.
they like giggled like two little schoolgirls. The embarrassment, right? The shame of it,
Mhm.
like, ooh, don't say it. And it
Mhm.
was just like jarring to me that me and my friends in our generation, we'll talk about it all, like talk
Mhm.
about it all. And I think that we talk about it all because we didn't have a space to talk about it before, and we were all going through these very, real curious spaces in our lives. And so
Mhm.
I think the more we kind of, give it back in spaces where people are open and receptive, that we will start to have more of these conversations,
Mhm.
and kind of just shift the narrative, really shift the
Mhm.
narrative. So this work that you're doing is so important, because I think just edit, sometimes we don't have people that look like us to give us these type of, conversations, and communities to talk about these things, to feel safe in talking about these things. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, because it's necessary.
Mhm. Well, thank
It's
you.
necessary.
And I'm coming into my own a little bit more because I think I shared previously, I used to be very hesitant, or ashamed is too strong a word, and I haven't really sat with it that long to think if that's the word I want to use, but just like wary, like to talk about my own experience, my own journey, because I didn't want it to kind of, you know, cast a shadow on my credibility, I guess. But
Mhm.
I'm thankfully getting out of that and understanding that my experiences are worth sharing, and they actually add so much value
Mhm.
to my work. And one thing I want to say before we end is that, back on the idea of like how we, view failure in our body, and failure, our body is meant to do this thing. And while that is true, we were created with a womb, we were created with the cycle, and each cycle does each time bring the possibility of a pregnancy. If you can't do this thing, it doesn't mean that you are broken or you're somehow less than. It
Mhm.
just sometimes means that you need extra support, extra love. You just need to be poured into a little bit more.
Mhm.
And from my perspective, the way that I, talk about things is that um, healing in nature, and us in nature, we are connected. We are so connected, and we just need to return to that sometimes and just give nature just a little nudge, a little push, because something may be blocking it. Something, I just think of like a dam sometimes, like some little busybody beavers, they weren't supposed to be there, and all of a sudden they create this dam. You just need to figure out a way to get the beavers out of there and tear down the dam. It's not like the beavers are part of nature. They're intended to be there, but for what you want the river to flow, you want your fertility to flow. This is how my brain works when I make these analogies. But just to understand that, you are not broken, that finding your why, finding out, okay, if the body is supposed to do this, why is my body not doing that? And to understand that, to get to the bottom of it, to the root cause, to find a solution. And once you can understand it, you can name it. Once you can name it, you can work to heal it. And I try to use that word too often because it's so loaded, but to have our society built in such a way where we are not valued, we are not protected, we are not, the way that our female body works isn't valued and protected. The men get, put on the pedestal, and it should be us, but anyway. But to understand that, and just to kind of figure out, okay, what is it about my environment, internal, external, all the above, that is kind of getting in the way. So you are not broken. If anyone is currently dealing with this, and you're looking for a way out, just understand that it just takes time. Sometimes it takes a little bit of extra digging, but it's not you. You're not broken. Just a little reminder.
That's a big reminder.
So thank you all for watching and tuning in to part 3 today. Ms. Kelli, do you have anything for us to close with?
I think what you just gave was beautiful.
Okay.
I do.
Sometimes you have quotes for us.
I think that you hit it right on the head. I think you hit it right on the head,
Thank you. And I thank you all for being here and for being in this community and wanting to participate in this. Oh, thank you, Mickey. I'll just read what she's saying for whoever can't read. I love you, Erica. Thank you for doing this. This discussion requires vulnerability, and I honor you for sharing your experience and allowing us to see the healing taking place. And she says, thank you, Kelli.
Thank you.
So, and yes, thank you, Kelli, for doing this. I am always like emotionally vulnerable and on the verge of, y'all don't want to see me ugly cry, but I was gonna say enjoy talking about this, but I don't know if that's really what I mean. I appreciate talking about these things and sharing. So next week is the last and final part. Yeah. Tentatively, I believe we'll be discussing finding joy, whether that is through acceptance or even perhaps pivoting. And maybe talk a little bit about redefining expectations. And I do see how a lot of these threads are kind of daisy chaining their way through all of these conversations. But so that's what we'll be talking about. And we'll be back Friday at 6:30 p.m. Correct? We'll figure it
possibly out. We'll figure it out. It's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. I have this tattoo on my wrist, and it's an infinity symbol. When we all went through that phase of the infinity symbol tattoo. And mine says strength and pain. And to that point, it is a continuous cycle. You find your joy sometimes through the painful things that you experience in life. And vice versa. And so if you can always kind of recognize that you put out, you receive, you have seasons of giving, just as you have seasons where it's time to be given to you. When I don't have it to give because of whatever I may be going through that is painful, maybe I find the joy, or I work to see the joy in having people show up for me, having people pour into me, having people support me, having people normalize, my experiences, having people take things off of my to-do list, right? The way that we allow people to kind of love up on us, because at the core of it, it's love, right? It's when you said it earlier, like giving this man these kids, I'm giving you my love. I'm giving you my love. And so when there's difficulty giving that love by choice or, forces outside of ourselves, recognizing that that's a space where receiving love is so important so that you too can one day get back to that place to give again.
And I actually had this conversation earlier with your sister and everybody else. It's sometimes hard. Like, I'm the person, like, don't give me no compliments, don't look at me, don't say anything. I was like, I don't want any of it. And so it's sometimes difficult to receive that love. I don't know why, but then sometimes when I do allow myself to receive it and to be showered in it, it's like a balm, like a salve. It's just like, it's so soothing and it's so wonderful and literally heartwarming to the little icy heart of mine. And so, like you're saying, to be able to accept and receive. And another thing another conversation my mom and I were having, she was like, we attach tears to grief so often, but to consider that tears and joy also go hand in hand, and to allow ourselves to, because normally if you're having tears, you try to shut them down. Like, say you're reading like a really beautiful card and you're like, you try to shut down the tears, but it's so good to sometimes to have that soothe you also, and to have the duality of, yes, sometimes I'm going to cry because I'm sad, but sometimes I can cry because I'm joyful. Have both, because again, there's no negative emotion, they're just emotions. They all exist and they all are equal and important.
And that's just validating emotion and normalizing, physiological response. Because to the point with the older ladies, they were laughing so hard that they were crying. Yes. They were laughing so hard that they were crying, but I literally could see the embarrassment on their face, right? So although it's funny, sometimes I laugh when things actually are embarrassing to me or when I'm nervous, right? That just may be the response that I choose, or just, that feels more acceptable in the moment. So ugly cry, naming something else. Y'all, this cry finna be real strong, but you gonna catch it all, right? Join in with me if you so please.
We both can be ugly crying together now.
And why not? We could both be cute together. Why can't we ugly cry together?
I can't handle it. I can't handle seeing anyone cry, by the way. I cannot handle it.
That's fair.
My emotions are like right here on the surface. If you trigger me, we will be just through. Okay. But you're right to share that with someone else. Okay. Last note, Mickey said also to you, Kelli, you are phenomenal, and so gentle with your words. Peace, bliss, and abundance to you on your journey and in your field.
Thank you so much.
All right, ladies, we will end here and we'll be back for the last and final part. Thank you, Kelli, and I'll see you in a couple of days.
Friday. Yes, the weeks are flying. They are flying. All right, everyone, will be safe. Have a great evening as best as you can. Peace out.
Bye, y'all.